take this car like to parades or shows or stuff like that. And so right now I am just 13 miles short of 38,000 miles.
This is a 1948 Hudson.
That's correct. It's a Hudson Commodore, which was their top-of-the-line car. Yeah, and the thing being is, I'm a person that will not restore the car. It's better to leave it original. This is what it came from the factory looking like. Just has age on it, because me and the car are the same age. And so we're, how'd you say, aging the same.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Talking About Cars podcast. As Randy Cardoon, that be me, goes on the road, this time to another interesting spot where there's some really cool classic cars to be seen, and we can get the story of those cars, because everybody has a car story. This time, I'm into station wagons, which is kind of like a little obvious at this point. And that, of course, being my 1957 Pontiac Custom Safari wagon. Kind of looks like a Nomad, but it's not. Ask any Nomad owner, ask any Pontiac owner. They know it's not the same. All right, so sometime back, we visited the Avance Wagon Fest in Tacoma, Washington, just outside the LeMay America's Car Museum there on their lawn. It was kind of a fun event. A lot of cars showed up. Interestingly enough, not as many classics as there were recent station wagons, and even those cars had a story. So let's catch up with some interesting wagons, including one that has a concept you're very familiar with, although to be honest, it's nothing like you've ever seen before.
I am a very big Ghostbusters fan, Gen X. I grew up with Ghostbusters, and I still like them today. And I actually was here for the coming of Gozer in 1984, so I remember that.
You were here for the coming of Gozer.
I was. I survived the coming of Gozer in 1984 with the original Ghostbusters. So, yeah.
You said here. I thought it had something to do with Seattle or Tacoma.
On the planet. A lot of people don't realize what Ghostbusters is anymore, and they'll be pulling up next to me at a stoplight and going, "Are you some kind of weather researcher?" I'm like, "Yes, some kind of weather researcher. That's it." But with the new movies that have come out in the recent years, I think there's a whole new generation of kids that are experiencing Ghostbusters and the fun that it was about. And, it's been interesting driving the car.
Tell me a little bit about, well, as long as you brought it up, the new movies. What do you think of the new movies?
The latest movie, The Frozen Empire, it was okay. I don't think it's the best. The last one that they did with the grandchildren, I think that was top notch. They did an excellent job on that, and they had Easter eggs for all of the old school Ghostbusters to really enjoy, but I still enjoy the first two. That's what I've sort of patterned my homage after. And, it was interesting. I used to do charity car shows with a local Subaru group. And we came up with the idea of doing a charity Halloween costume contest where you would actually dress up your cars, and you would dress up, and we would donate money to Hope Link or some other kind of worthy cause, and do a food drive and have a lot of fun for the evening as well. And the first year that I dressed the car up, I had skeletons all over it, and it was a bone wagon driving down the road. 4 or 5 skeletons all over the top of the car, hanging on for dear life, and it got some looks, but I had some folks at the car show say, "You know what you ought to do? You ought to turn this into an ECTO-mobile, an ECTO wagon." And I said, it's an idea. I can figure this out. I'm an engineer. I might be able to come up with some interesting things. And the other point of doing this is if I can help someone else stop thinking about the craziness and the negative stuff for even 5 minutes out of their day, even if it's just from a sheer state of confusion, I'll do it. That's me sort of giving back a little bit and trying to diffuse things a little bit. So, and you say, it's political season, so Peter Venkman, 2024, fully support him. If you're tired of being slime, vote Venkman. Yes, this all comes off. It only comes on like after Labor Day. It ramps up the season right around Halloween quite a bit, and then I will usually keep it on until the first couple of weeks in November. A couple of years I've continued it on through Christmas and through New Year's, but I've changed things up a little bit. I would change the decals out and make Grinch busters, and put on a Santa Claus hat and a beard and drive around like that and shake my finger at all the naughty boys and girls. And once again, it's simply because it's a lot of work, and if I can leave it up a little bit longer, I will do that. But I will say, with all of this on here, it's like having a wind sail on a normally pretty aerodynamic wagon. Miles per gallon goes down. Smiles per gallon goes up. But at some point, because it is still a daily driver with 345,000 miles on it and still counting, I got to take this stuff off. I just can't afford the gas on it. So, and it's also not the easiest thing to store with everything on there.
So how and why did you decide on a Subaru as far as the car, as opposed? I am assuming it has something to do with the fact that it's hard to get a 60s Cadillac hearse to get the real deal.
Getting a 59 Miller Meteor and having a place to store it, if I could, I would. I can't. Don't have anywhere to keep it, so not doing that now. I was sort of a Subaru fan before this, which is why I was part of the Subaru Car Club that was here locally in Western Washington, and had a couple of different Subarus. I'm a Subaru brand ambassador, so I still promote the brand, but I believe in the brand for the Pacific Northwest because we get all sorts of crazy weather, and having that full-time all-wheel drive, symmetrical all-wheel drive really makes a difference. I can go just about anywhere, whether you're going out in the woods, you're going on the streets, you're going back and forth to work, you're going to get groceries in your wagon. Subaru just has a good brand and good quality for that, and I still believe in them. And we've got 3 older Subarus in the household, and I figured, well, I don't have the Miller Meteor Cadillac, so I'll work with what I have. This is what I had, and this is what I chose.
How long did it take to put together? I mean, obviously, since it comes apart, I assume not too long.
It takes, between dealing with the decals and the superstructure and all of the other smaller detailed parts, it takes the better part of 2 days to get it up into this condition. And even today, I had not yet tested all of my flashing lights yet. I had the electrical system set up. I knew how it was supposed to work, but there's always a little tweaking. Same thing with the sound system. It takes a little bit of tweaking, and inevitably something always breaks when it goes into storage every year. So I've got to do the gluing and putting things back together with zip ties, finding a new part, etc. I think there will be some kids that see this today and they probably go home talking about it and maybe saying, I want to be a Ghostbuster for Halloween. So I'd love to see more little Ghostbusters out there for Halloween. And I do more than just a car. I actually have the full suit. I've got a pack that I built. I have all different kinds of things that I've done so when it gets closer to Halloween and they have different zombie walks or parades, I'll dress up completely for that.
What's your favorite part about this ECTO?
It's probably got to be Slimer. It's funny, I can be driving on the highway on there and people are already a little bit in awe when they're pulling up next to me, and I'll just slowly roll down that back window and they see Slimer and you just see them bust out laughing. So I think that's still my favorite part, and that sort of embodies the whole movie and the fun that's behind it is, scary stuff is sort of fun too. And if I can make some people smile a little bit, like Slimer smiling, I'm happy to do that.
It'd be nice to one day if Bill or Dan or anybody comes through Seattle, they should probably autograph your car.
That'd be real nice. Yeah. No, I have great respect for them as actors, even today, as they're sort of winding down their careers in many cases. But yeah, no, I've been a big follower of that whole group.
Okay, so this is a 1991 Saab 9000 Turbo, and then the camper on top is called a Toppola. I've lovingly nicknamed it the Turbo Topper. In Sweden, they made about, I think, 200 of the Toppolas across a few different Saab models. For the Model 9000, they only made 4 of them that are known. So basically, I've been a Saab enthusiast my entire life, And I saw a Toppola when I was 12 years old and fell in love with the idea. The Saab 9000 has always been my favorite car, and it took me about 20 years to locate a 9000 Toppola and be able to buy it and ship it to the States. So I bought it a couple of years ago, and it was on a 9000 non-turbo that had some rust issues. So I imported it on that car and picked up this turbocharged 91 9000 that was in really rough shape, stripped it down, redid the interior, redid the exterior, and here we are. Wow. Yeah.
So what'd you do with the other one? Just throw it away, basically? Because you only bought it for the top.
Yeah, so I actually ended up using it as a parts car. It had some rust issues just from coming from Sweden, but the interior was actually like preserved really well, and it provided a lot of parts I needed for this car. This car had actually been flooded in a flash flood from a river, and then it had been sitting under a tree, and I mean the paint was ruined. So
this particular car was actually a survivor of a flood.
Yeah, about 5 months ago, this car could have easily gone to the junkyard. Yeah. So did a full cut and buff on the paint myself, restored that, and then had this special European body kit for the car painted and stripped the interior out, used like the carpets from the parts car, installed newer Saab seats into it, and just completely went through it.
Are you from Sweden or the Netherlands? Because to know this much, especially about the Topper, how did you find out about it to begin with?
Yeah, so my parents have been into Saabs my entire life, and that's how I ended up seeing one when I was 12. I've been to Sweden multiple times with my family. My mom used to sell new Saabs, so I kind of come by it naturally. And like I said, the 9000's always been my favorite Saab, even though, you know, as far as Saab enthusiasts go, it wasn't always the most popular. It wasn't the sportiest car. The 900 was typically the one that Saab owners really loved. Two-door hatchback. Saab was the 9000 was a larger family car. But for whatever reason, I've always loved it. When I was 19, 20, I built a 9000 to about 500 horsepower, and so building this car just came naturally to me. My dad always worked on cars when I was little, but I didn't ever really learn from him. I would go out to give him a hand when he needed a hand, but when I was 17, I bought a 9000 with a manual transmission, quickly burned the clutch out, and didn't have the money to pay someone to do it. So I had to pull the transmission and do the clutch myself, and that was the learning point for me, where I was like, oh, I can do this. I think that I'm just very mechanically inclined naturally, and then, you know, seeing my dad work on cars and then having access to his shop too. You know, he would clear out a bay so that I could use it to work on it, so I had access to all the right tools. And I never worked on a car before when I pulled that transmission out and did the clutch, but my brother sat in there and read the repair manual to me, and I did what he said.
How hard was it to find this top?
I actually just bought this 2 years ago. I have a good friend over in Sweden that has a Toppola on his Saab 9.3, and he's really active in the community there. And as soon as this one came up for auction, he told me, and he played a huge role in helping me buy it, store it in Sweden until I was able to ship it here.
What's the best thing about this car?
It doesn't feel like you're driving with essentially an entire RV on the back. It has the power to haul it around. It's very, very comfortable and fun to drive, and you have a full camper to use wherever you want to go.
So you can just take the family or you or whomever and just go on a trip and not have to worry about hotels.
Yeah, and the Toppola is made to come on and off the cars really easily. As you can see, it just sits on the roof rack here, and then you just take the hatch off and it drops right in. So you can actually put the hatch back on the car, kind of like just putting a camper in the bed of a truck. So you have the versatility of having it on there or off.
What are people's reaction to this?
People love it. You know, everywhere I go as I'm driving, everyone's giving the thumbs up and taking pictures as we drive past, and, you know, it just makes people happy. They've never seen anything like this before.
All right, so here we have a 1988 Subaru GL10. So it's a factory turbo car, factory 5-speed car. I bought the car back in 2004. I drove it from Olympia to my house and immediately ripped the engine transmission out of it. It started its second life with a Japanese 2-liter out of a WRX with the 5-speed transmission. I drove it that way for a while, and then I went to a 2.5 liter, an EJ257 motor. I drove it that way for a while, then put the STI 6-speed in it, drove it that way for a while. I ended up driving the car for about 15 years as a daily driver at just north of 300 horsepower. A lot of fun. Had the Brembo brakes, the whole 9 yards, the STI drivetrain. And then I had kids. I've got 3 kids at home now and a wife, and so the 5 of us didn't fit real well in this car anymore. So this car, from the time I drove it into my garage till I drove it out under its own power, was only about 5 or 6 months. And yeah, so all the interior got ripped out. Everything from the front seats to the back bumper inside the car got cut out, new frame welded in, and sheet metal, re-sheet metaled, and put back together.
And you've pretty much, if not done everything on this thing, all of it.
Every single thing on this car, bumper to bumper, was done in my garage at home, except for the transmission was built by Strange Auto Barn, and Drift Office did the tuning on the ECU.
And where do you race this usually?
Typically race it at Pacific Raceways, and occasionally I do go out to Bremerton and run 8th Mile as well. You know, my theory is once it's done, it's for sale. So the part that I really enjoy is the modifying and tweaking, and so the next stop is going to be a higher horsepower motor, so the goal is to get into the 9s, and so a couple more horsepower I think we'll be able to do it. And it is a budget build, believe it or not, and so it has all STI cams and springs and everything in it, in the heads, but the heads casts themselves are non-turbo castings. I teach automotive classes at Green River College, and have been for almost 15 years now.
We're talking about how now you are working to try and teach them EV automotive, basically.
Yeah, so just this, in the last 2 years, we've procured about $1 million worth of state and federal grants. And so by this time next year, we'll be teaching some full EV hybrid classes to add on top of our current associate's degree that we have. We'll have a couple of EV certificates that'll be on top of that.
That's huge news, considering all the stories we've all heard about auto shop and how they're cutting it out of schools and doing all that other stuff. So how did you get that to happen?
It is, so I taught high school automotive for a number of years before I started teaching at the college, and so most of the high schools are cutting back. We've been able to keep most of them at least in this area, keep the high school automotive programs going. But it's an absolute necessity because, we've got hundreds of millions of cars out on the road. They're all going to break. They have to have somebody to fix them. And it's not a dirty job today. It's a very technical and very advanced job that we're working on and that we're teaching students to do today.
What does your wife think about you taking all her old cars and turning them into hot rods or EVs?
When I married my wife, I was a car guy. She grew up with a father as a car guy, so she understands that I'm going to be a car guy. When we got married, we had some rules. There's no cars in the driveway on blocks. It has to look nice, so everything I own runs and drives unless it's a current project. But she understands, and she's a little bit of a car gal herself. So
we got a 91 Isuzu Gemini. It's a Bahamas green version of the color. Found it on Yahoo Auction Japan and had it imported.
Do you normally peruse Yahoo Auctions Japan, and why?
I do, because I have 2 Isuzus now. Reason why is a lot of the parts for the car obviously are there, so I have to purchase them and ship them back here to get them. Yep.
Okay, so what got you onto Zuzus from other countries to begin with?
Probably back in like 2008, I'll correct that. A buddy of mine in Colorado Springs, Colorado had a Geostorm, and I didn't know what it was, but it was really neat, and he turboed it. I'm like, well, that's a really interesting vehicle. So I started looking for a Geostorm in the U.S., and I found a GSI in Washington. I was currently living in California, and had bought it and had my parents drive it to their place, and I flew up, picked it up, and drove it home and started working on them, and realized how really fun these cars are. And the Geostorm turned out to be an Isuzu Impulse underneath.
All right, so looking on the side of this, it looks kind of like a shrunken version of a Chevy Blazer. And of course, this was a GM vehicle anyway.
Yeah, it was. The Geo line was sold by Chevrolet, certainly, but not a General Motors vehicle. It's all Isuzu. Yeah. But yeah, I go with the Blazer a little bit. It's not off-road, but...
No, but it's interesting, the big window in the back on the side there, and there are some other things on it. What is it about this car that you really like?
One was a wagon, and I haven't owned a wagon before. I've owned the two-door coupes, the hatchbacks, and I currently have the sedan. So we have a group of guys that are called the Wagon Back Preservation Society. So I've decided I wanted to join this group and get a wagon. And this is the one I told you I saw on Yahoo Auctions Japan. It was Bahamas green, which was striking to me. I'd never seen the color in any of our Isuzus, and plus it was a wagon. I said, yeah, man. And that's how I acquired it.
It's very cool. It almost has kind of nomad lines, if you will. I mean, if you want to stretch your imagination.
Yeah, I think most of the spectators that have come by the car today have said it's just a refreshing kind of different look to a traditional Japanese car. So yeah, the Isuzu had some good artists, in their within their community.
How many of these do you have?
Only two.
Only two now. Okay, I thought you said you had
maybe a third one soon. I talked to a gentleman that walked by and owns Impulse. I think he lives in Auburn, so I got his phone number. We're gonna hook up and we'll figure this out. Picked it up in Ferndale from the import guys, and started it up. And I asked if he checked the antifreeze and just made sure things. He goes, "Well, I charged the battery." Okay, so got on my way, and I noticed the fuel was a little low, so I close by to where I picked it up. I got a little bit of fuel and got on my way. As I got going, I noticed the check engine light starting to come on and off and on and off. And so with the power, electrically, it was giving me something's not right. I made it about 30 miles away, and I realized the car was going to die. So luckily, I don't remember the exact Burlington I think I made it to. I pulled in there next to some car dealerships, thankfully. And it was pretty hot that day, and I popped the hood and had a guy come over and test the charging system, and he said the battery's toast and it's not charging. So that was where I stopped, and the wife had already left me with the tools and the Jetta.
Of course she did.
Of course she did. So I asked, please come back because I need to get this. I had to get a whole new battery from Napa.
Yes, my father bought it in 1948. The date for it was October 5th, 1948. He bought this car. He put it in registration under my mom's name, but he drove it. But after a while, my grandfather said, "This is too much of a car for you. I will buy it off of you." And he did. Well, the problem being he only drove it a small amount on special times, and that was it. It sat in the garage a lot. And when I pulled this car out of the garage, it had less than 23,000 miles. And he died in 81. And I'd take this car like to parades or shows or stuff like that. And so right now I am just 13 miles short of 38,000 miles.
This is a 1948 Hudson.
That's correct. It's a Hudson Commodore, which was their top-of-the-line car. Yeah. And the thing being is, I'm a person that will not restore the car. It's better to leave it original. This is what it came from the factory looking like. Just has age on it, because me and the car are the same age. And so we're, how'd you say, aging the same. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you're cracking too much, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so I just leave it that way, and I have people enjoy the car because a lot of people don't want you to be near their car. I have the doors open and they can sit in it. They can touch it. I one time had two older ladies come up and they were talking to me and reminiscing. So I said, well, why don't you just get in the back and sit down? They did. They were in there for an hour and a half. And people would come up and say to them, is this your car? And they go, oh no, we're just sitting in it. Yeah.
Talking about cars, I guess. Yeah, that's such an interesting.
It brings back a lot of memories for them, different. Yeah, so that's half the enjoyment of coming here, is for the people to enjoy the car and reminisce.
You brought along the original sales receipt, I guess it is. What else? What else do you have?
Oh, well, I have receipts on, the first service and how much it cost. Cost $2.88. I have in there the booklet. If you want to work on your car, has all the specs. It has in that binder also on Hudson uniforms, Hudson on TV, just great amount of things that more than I can explain. Yeah.
You have a kind of a printing. I want.
It's a die.
It's a die, is what it is.
It's a die that the Tacoma News Tribune would use to print out for the newspaper, which was for the dealership where this car was bought. Yeah.
And that dealership closed how long ago?
That dealership closed in about 1950, around 1954, because that was the last year that Hudson was making an automobile. Mm-hmm.
Well, you said you went over there and wanted some of their stuff. You must have been pretty young at the time.
I was pretty young. I was with my father, and I wanted to make sure that we get all this stuff because it seemed important to me. Yeah.
I got a feeling that you kind of knew even back then that this car was going to be in your life for a while.
Yeah, because everybody knew that the car was coming to me after he passed away, so it did. And I've been in different parades with taking dignitaries, some unusual ones. One time I was down at the waterfront, Tacoma waterfront, and they had a parade on the 4th of July. So I took this dignitary, I can't remember his name, but got to the end of the parade. And the official stopped me and told me, turn around, I want you to go back to the beginning. So I'm going alongside the parade, the opposite direction, turn the car around. The person I picked up was Miss America.
There's a tag on the seat.
Tag for the upholstery. In other words, from the manufacturer, still on the seats, stating the fact that basically they're brand new.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So everything you see inside this car is original.
You were telling me about how even the headlights, while certainly are not original except for maybe one of them?
Right. One of them burned out time when we were down in Oregon, Seaside. That's the first time this car had ever been out of the Washington state. And it went out, so I had to stop off in an auto place and told them, I have a 6-volt system in that car. Do you have a headlight? They said, I think we still have one in the back.
What's the best memory you have of this car?
One of the best memories of this car was it would be my son's wedding, and I chauffeured them in it up to SeaTac, so they to the hotel there, and my son to their dances with their girl or boyfriend. Yeah, and I would pick them up because I used to wear a tuxedo with the white gloves, top hat, and the whole bit. And the one time I drove up and got in front of Olive Garden, got out, walked around, opened the door for them. They all went in. I got back in the car and I drove and I waited until they were about ready. I drove right up in front of the thing and I stood there at the door with my hands behind my back, waiting for them to come out. And all these people are looking at me like, what is going on? And they, yeah.
So what happens to the car? Have you already decided where the car is going when you pass?
The only thing I want this car to go to is either to somebody who leaves it all original, has the same thoughts I do, or I would give it here to LeMay's, because I have talked to them before. And they could have the car, everything I got up there. I don't need to get paid for it as long as that car goes to somewhere where it'll be enjoyed for being a car, not just a showpiece. In other words, you can actually get in it sit down, see what it's like and stuff.
And that'll wrap up the station wagon. No, it wasn't a Hudson station wagon edition of the Talking About Cars podcast. If you guys like today's show, don't forget, give us a thumbs up and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn. Hot Rod Bob, yeah, he's on the poster. He will be back in future episodes. I'm coming to you, of course, from the Pacific Northwest home of Two Tired Guys Productions right here in Washington State. I'm Randy Cardoon. We'll see you next time on the Talking About Cars podcast.